Welcome back. We're continuing our discussion with our guest, Rob Baker. We went out and walked the job site and toured around. And as I mentioned before, having a second pair of eyes is always a good thing on a project. Rob, out on the project, see anything that's tweaks your mind to talk about?
Well, it's a good job.
Thank you.
And in my role as an owner's rep, I'm still walking jobs. And one of the things that I do for my clients is I look for what's called the clues.
Right.
And a mentor of mine taught me, Rob, when you're walking the job, look for clues because if you see a clue of something that just doesn't look quite right, that's going to trigger you to dig deeper. And as you dig deeper into that clue, you might find some things that need to be corrected. I'm not saying that to say I saw clues on the job. I'm just saying that's one of the things I look for when I walk a job site is I'm looking for clues.
I like that. Look for clues.
Yeah,
That's a good name for it.
yeah. I thought it was when he told me that. Um, and then top of the list is safety. You and I worked for a company that had a safety program called Zero Harm.
Right. Zero harm. I remember that.
Yeah, that was awesome. And it had the right end in mind,
Right.
which was everybody that comes onto our job site is to be kept safe so that they're going home at night to their families in the same condition, if not better, than when they came to work.
Right.
And that was the whole philosophy of Zero Harm. Uh, After that company that you and I worked with,
Right.
I had the privilege to work with two other companies that have a similar mindset. And safety is really important, and it should be the start and the finish of every day on a job site.
Yes, in my later years in the industry, one of the first things we did, safety started at bid.
Mm,
Once you had the project out, we actually had to have a project specific site safety plan. It was a thick book, but it covered everything and
right.
anything related to the project.
Yeah.
You can't write one safety plan for all because you might be building a prison one time and a school or a nuclear power plant.
Hmm.
But we had to have a site specific safety plan, and that went out with the subs for their bids so
Okay.
that they could cover it.
Yeah.
Starts in
Terrific.
the starts in the beginning.
Start with the end in mind, right?
Oh yeah,
Yep.
and I've over the years I've seen some incidents that have been very unsettling and learned lessons in my life.
Mm,
And one of the things we've created on this project is a uh, emergency action plan. So if a person, whether they have a heart attack, a diabetic reaction, they are injured or whatever, that happens. We have an actual plan that we practice. We set up a relay line. So one person, and we practice this in our office trailers and with the people on site. One person goes to the gate. Another person will go out to the intersection in the road. We're all wearing safety vests.
mhm.
They will wait and flag the ambulance into the site. The other guy will tell them to turn into the site. The next person will have them flagged up to, you have to stop here because, a stuck ambulance is no good.
Right.
Then from there, they'll be relayed up into the building, whether it's up the stairs or across the building, wherever it may be. And a team is set together that where the ambulance stops if they need help with equipment, especially taking a gurney up 3 flights of stairs. They assist, they do whatever it takes, and then they bring it to that person. And at that whole time, there's a employee that's with that person, tending them, doing what they can to help them out, and keeping the area safe so that maybe it's electrical or something. We want the area safe for the next party to enter so we don't get multiple problems. And then you reverse the process when you go out.
Yeah.
And I learned that on a project one day,
That's
and
great.
that's what we have here on this one. So let's go back to our topic before we went out and walked the field.
Okay.
The plan. Who's it good for?
Mm. Yeah. Another lesson learned from a mentor. Um, And the way he explained it to me was, Rob, we can sit in here and we can develop the best schedule that we think is great, that has a flow line that we think is fantastic. But if you can't convince the subcontractors out there that your plan is one that is good for them, then you're going to get nowhere. Because you and I know that superintendents and project managers are managing the project and leading the project, but
Right.
the rubber hits the road with the subcontractors. They're the ones putting the work in place. And so they need to feel like that the schedule that we've developed, the plan, is good for them, not just good for us, right?
Yeah. Buy in.
The
Yeah.
buy-in.
Yep.
So that's what the plan, who is it good for, means, is making sure they feel like that you've developed a schedule that helps them be profitable every day, which means they need to know where they're going in the morning. They need to understand the flow line and they need to make production every day. If
Right.
you can do that for your subs, they're going to love you and bend over backwards.
Yeah. And we like to see that process started at bid. One of the things a lot of people do is bid the job and they don't have a schedule they have to bid it to.
Mhm.
And that helps with the buy-in and the timing is to have it bid with a schedule in mind.
Yeah.
That sets the durations, and
So true. Yeah.
those durations are contractually obligated. But you don't just make that schedule. You when you're doing bidding, you sit down and talk with them. They've got a lot of ideas of how they can solve things. And some of it involves priority framing, priority rooms, getting the electrical main gear, switch gear room complete first in the project. Very critical item. And getting the subcontractors buy into the flow. And then we like to have meetings with all of the subcontractors, the PMs, the PXs, the field supervision to talk about the plan. This is how it's going to go. And
Yeah.
then once we do the project startup meetings, it helps a lot
Sure.
because it's nothing worse than if you didn't include someone and they come in and they look at you and say, I didn't bid it that way. I can't do that. You just got a nail in the coffin there.
Problem.
Yeah, you got a problem to fix, and the
Yep.
way it goes through. And it kind of brings along instances where you can have challenges or people walking away on projects with stuff that it's going to create an issue later on.
Yeah.
So, horse trading. I like to call it chips in my bucket, horse trading, but horse trading is a better term for it.
Yeah.
What do you see as your part on the horse trading?
Well, that's another term, like field smart. Are you a good horse trader on the job site? And again, mentor taught me that, it's give and take on the job site.
Oh, yeah.
And there are going to be times when you need a favor and they're going to be asking themselves when you're asking them for the favor, what has he done for me?
Right.
And so, a smart superintendent, at least in my case for me, is going to look for opportunities to help the subcontractors on the job.
Right.
And sometimes, you might have to put your wallet into it a little bit,
Yeah.
you know, but um, if you can get some points on your side with having helped the subcontractor, whatever the case may be, let's say he needs crane time when it's not convenient for you to give him the crane time, but you give him the crane time. That's one in your corner.
Oh, yeah.
And then when it comes time where you really need him, you've got 2 or 3 or 4 favors that you've sort of built up on your side that you can horse trade, say, "Hey, I helped you out here. I need you to help me out here." And that's what I mean by a good superintendent is a good horse trader.
It's very true, and I like your examples on that because I've seen them and done them many a times. Buck hoist, okay, I'll bring the operator in an hour early for you so you can stock
Right.
before the
Good
crowd
example.
gets here.
Yeah.
Yeah, done that a lot, and I've had conduits that were a half an inch out of the wall line, and you go ahead and move it over to help the electrician.
Mm.
But you hit the most important part. You got to start those horse trading. You got to get the positive side first.
Sure.
You can't always they don't always come in for you, but you got to you got to go get those first. And
Yeah, I agree.
I've heard it called chips in my bucket. And the one thing I was taught by the same superintendent that you had was you may not equal the score on the horse trading before you leave, but when you come to the next job and you see that individual, yes, you still carry on with the count, the
Yeah,
horse
well,
trading.
you know what I call that? You talk about chips in the bucket. Um, Another way of saying that is on the relationship side.
Yes.
You're making deposits in their emotional bank account. So when you come to that next job, you've already got synergy between the two of you. You've got a trust based relationship because of the way you treated each other on the last job.
Right.
And yes, there may have been a few favors you didn't cash in on the last job, but yeah, it does transfer over. I agree.
They'll remember it and bring it with you. And they already know, like you said, I can work with this person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, there's other parts on that. And one of them that keeps going is problem solving.
Mm.
And the, that's part of the problem solving for helping that out. But
Mm-hmm.
what does a problem solver look like to you?
Well, in this case, I'll give you a specific example, like a little story that uh, that superintendent taught me. My role, again, remember I was talking about being in the other end of the trailer from him on the airport project?
Right.
My role was to check rebar shop drawings and then procure and expedite the rebar to the job site. So it needed to be right, it needed to be delivered on time when it was needed.
Yeah.
And and so that was my job. And in this one particular instance I'm using as an example, the rod busting superintendent that was the rebar placer came in and was very upset because some of the rebar was wrong. It wasn't bent correctly and it wasn't going to fit in the beams of the columns, whatever it might have been. Um, and it was my fault. And it was the first time I'd really run into a mistake or a problem that I had made on a job site. So again, it was early on in my career as a project engineer, and I got pretty panicked over it. And I remember the superintendent telling me, Rob, the people that are successful in this business are not the ones that don't make mistakes because you're going to make mistakes in this business. It's a complicated business, construction. The ones that survive and do well are the ones that figure out how to solve the problem
Right.
when they have the problem. And so that's what's behind that. In that particular instance, I don't really recall how I solved it, but I do remember I solved it. And the rod busting superintendent was happy and the job went on. But I never forgot what he told me about that. So as my career progressed and I made more mistakes and I ran into
Oh, it was
problems.
true. You did make more
Oh
mistakes.
yeah, I made plenty. I still make some. But I always remembered what he told me about that, and it helped me just not get too anxious over it. Just look for the solution.
Yeah. It sometimes and don't be afraid to ask for other people's input.
Oh, I love that. Um, and if you don't mind me adding to that, is if you're going to be successful in the business, don't be afraid to accept help. Don't turn down help.
Right.
There's too many guys and ladies in the business out there that think they have to do it themselves, and it's a sign of weakness if they need to go ask for help. But it's on the contrary. In this construction industry, what I learned was if somebody offers you help, take it because it's a tough business.
Well, it's a sign of strength and leadership.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Being able to know when to ask for help.
Yep.
I've done that before. I did a project where we had to use 2 concrete pumps. I only ordered 1. I had to pump from one truck to the next pump and then down into the hole. And I ordered the lower pump, but I didn't order the upper pump. Yeah, I was doing some baking that day.
And that's a problem.
Yeah. So I fortunately had a superintendent and a job foreman, John T, that been around for years, and he figured out a workaround. The guy got on the loader. They started backing the trucks down to the hole while I'm on the phone begging the pump company for that I messed up and what could he do to help. And he said, "Look, I got a truck that's 45 minutes out. He's worked all night. You're going to have to pay his overtime, but he can be there." I said, "Send him." And yes, I had to pay his overtime, but he got there. He set up. It was 800-yard pour down in a hole,
Mm.
and there was no way I was going to make the whole thing. So, long story short, of course, I had to go to the director to explain why we spent more money than we had on that concrete pour,
Mhm.
but it worked out.
Sure.
And I'll never to that day. The guy that owned the pump company, he's still around. He's retired, but he still remembers that
Oh,
phone
yeah?
call. Oh yeah,
That's good.
and that brings up the other parts of the puzzles is working well with others.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do just with a little talk and a little communication, making sure the people know.
Yeah. I think that's a key. And I talked earlier about, high performing teams, and I think uh it's a relationship that gets formed in one way or another on every job site between uh all the all the members of the team. And if you have this attitude of any one position or any one person's role is lesser than thou's,
Right,
that's a bad path to take, because everybody's position and role has value and it needs to be honored. So making sure that that person feels honored is, again, back to what I said earlier. It's a deposit in that person's emotional bank account.
right,
And if they feel like when they come into work that they're honored and that their role is important, then that's working well with others.
and that's an art, being able to catch that.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen every day. Moods change. Some days you feel like putting in that effort, and some days it's like, not so much. But just trying to develop a habit of doing that on your teams
Hmm.
is important.
If you ever had a project where the working well with others was a problem, where your team didn't gel together,
Yes.
how did you help right that ship when it happened?
I just think it takes patience and stick to itiveness. You got to keep working to find what the person or the team responds to, and being willing to place your agenda on the back burner a little bit to give them what they need so that they feel like they're being listened to. And over a period of time, it sort of takes care of itself. There's this thing that many of us and some of the listeners have heard called forming, storming, norming. In every relationship, the team comes together on a job site, they've now been formed.
Right?
There's this time period, hopefully shorter than longer, where the team is storming. They're,
Right?
they're they're trying to figure out how to work together. They don't particularly like the way each other is going about doing something, and there's a storming that takes place until such time that what I mentioned earlier begins to take fruition, and then the team begins to norm. They all know their place, they know their role, they see that things are flowing better and in the right direction, and you've reached this norming stage.
Right? That's a pretty good feat. I've seen some of them go south and never recover.
Mm,
It's become a turmoil in the office, and people wind up leaving and paying attention to that. And I like what you said about dedicating some time, doing a priority to it to
mhm.
help settle the dust.
Mhm.
so that they can get to the norming part.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes, uh, there are team members that just aren't gonna be a good fit with the rest of the team, and executives have to look at that and have the managerial courage to step in and find that person a better role with a team that that person will work with better. Um, and it doesn't have to be, firing the person. It just finding them a better place with a
Maybe
better
another
team.
job or another
Yeah,
team or something.
yeah,
That's I like that part, and I've seen it happen more than once. Uh, but I've always seen the challenges that it brings with the new person coming in, and that probably weighs heavy when you take that person out, put them somewhere else, and bring a new person in the catch up time.
yes,
That's a little bit, but you know what? Maybe in the end, it's more beneficial for the team. I've seen one thorn on a team just keep the stuff stirred up, and it take them a while to fix it.
yeah, not good.
No, not then. It wasn't good.
That's what I mean by the managerial courage. The executive needs to see that and step in and fix it in a way that hopefully benefits everybody, including the person that just needed a better place to be.
I like your words on that managerial courage. I think that's a real key little point right there to think about. So, in your career, you've gone up and you've done different aspects and grew up in it.
Mhm.
And in the last section of your career, you had switched gears to doing a lot of project pursuits. And
Yes.
that is an art. Everything from selecting, is this a go, no go? Do we have the staff for it? Do we have the timing? Is the project, or can the company sustain this project bond wise? There's always some part that they have to work. How is it funded? What type is it? A CMR? Is it a private public partnership or something? What are some of the things you've run into with your project pursuits?
Well, right. So later in my career, I reached a level where I was what my company was calling a business unit leader. I was a senior vice president with the company and I managed a business unit, and it was focused on revenue like every other business.
Right?
So you had to keep a pipeline of work going, uh, not only to meet the financial expectations of the company, but to keep your employees that were in your business unit
Yeah.
working,
You really don't think about that part. Yeah,
right?
that's key.
So in my role as a business unit leader, what was one of my primary responsibilities was what's the next job? So I had to pursue, not had to, I actually really enjoyed it. I pursued work in a business development role
Yeah.
just as much as I oversaw the projects that I already had. And the term that my company applied to that was I was in a doer seller role. I was managing my project teams on the projects we had in the pipeline, but I was always out there selling um, to win the next job so that those teams had somewhere to go.
Right.
So I loved it. It involved, and by the way, at that point in my career, most of the owners were choosing builders based on qualifications just as much, if not more than price.
Right.
So there was a lot of interviews involved with clients, both on the private and the public sector side. So you had to be very good at public speaking. You had to be able to assemble a good interview team and present them to the clients who were making the decision on who do we want. And you were usually competing with no less than 4 or 5 in an interview on
Right.
any given interview day.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I was telling you earlier that in my career, I would say particularly the last 10 years or more,
Right.
I was spending a lot more time in that seller role than in the doer role. And I loved it and had good successes and a lot of losses. For every one you win, you probably lose three. but when you win them, there's nothing better.
Yeah, I can imagine what it's like when you're looking at projects. Okay, the crew's going to be done with this project in April, and it's June of the year before. I got to be looking ahead
Yep.
and selecting the right job, getting the right time down to get that moving forward. Plus, depending on the job, you might have a month to 3 months of pre-con or permitting, or if you're doing a design build with them. I bet that got a little hairy trying to make sure the crews they didn't have a void in their work line.
Well, I don't know if, interestingly enough, it worked out pretty well. There was, I don't recall many. There were maybe one or two where my project team was down and in the office and not on the job site. And in the office, not on the job site was not a good thing because that was overhead.
Right.
If they're on the job site, they're working, they're making money,
For the company,
we're
yeah.
bringing revenue. That was a good thing.
So I've heard this discussion in some companies. They carry a thing called bench money.
Mm-hmm.
So you finish up a project and one doesn't start for a month.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to send your teams home for a month because you know what they're going to do. They'll probably go find another job. But they used to carry bench money. It was a little bit of money that was always saved from projects and put into a fund.
Mm-hmm.
So if they had to come into the office and work, it didn't take it out of your overhead. Do they still do that to the day?
Well, I don't know if they do it today, but yes, they did it then. But I'll have to tell you, even as a senior vice president, that was always a mystery to me because I was not the CEO or the CFO. I wasn't making the deposits into that, but I knew it was happening and I was thankful for it. So I just had them letting me know that we need to get the next job
Right.
because these guys that are in here, they need to be on a project.
Well, one thing about that, if they were in the office, you were helping them with another skill to learn.
Well, true. And I myself, as I was coming up, I was on the bench several times. And guess what? When I was on the bench, I was in estimating. They would put me in there to help shore up the estimating
Right.
team. Learned a lot from that, to your point. Without that, and it happened 2 or 3 times, and without it, I don't think I would have been maybe as good at my job as I was because I had that experience.
Yep.
That's a real good point, Joe.
I got to be in estimating. I actually was flown down south to their corporate office for 4 weeks or actually drove down for 4 weeks to help with estimates. I got to sit with the estimators, MEPFs, concrete, civil, and assist them and talk to them and watch them build the estimate and put it together. And from there, the next one I was doing was rebar takeoffs. And they wanted to check the tonnage because they thought the contractor was over on the tonnage, over on the square footage of civil work. And the one that I liked even was more fun was they put me in and said, here's a set of drawings. There's the P6 program. Make a schedule for me. And I had learned from different people that, okay, a steel crew can set X pieces a day per crew. So you would put that in your account.
Yeah.
And then you knew that concrete columns X a day, concrete decks X a day. You could flip a deck pour every 5 to 10 days, depending on square footage. You had a square footage. You'd put all that stuff together and stick it in a line and then see if it was going to end when you wanted it to, because you knew your curtain wall systems could go up X and so on and so forth. And you'd put it in and go, okay, I'm 3 months late. So let's get a second concrete crew. Let's get a second steel crew. And okay, if we do that, then and there you go. Now you can put it out the bid.
Yeah.
All right. So this schedule is built off of 2 crews for you.
Yeah.
Put it in your budget. Don't come in surprise. 2 cranes, 2 crews, the entire job. 2 concrete crews, you're working from out of the end of the building into the middle. And all that timing, helps you get to where you
Want to be?
want to be. And I love that. That was a lesson that I learned and have taken with me for many times.
Sure.
And
Because when you got on the job, you had that much more experience building the P6 schedule.
oh
So,
yeah. And then I got a chance to learn how to update a P6 schedule. So we have one up here that we've done, and we've updated it. And if you notice, I got pluses and minuses here on the wall, but the plus ones where we were lost today here is on a critical path. This is another minus on a critical path item. So I got to figure out what to do to recover that. Down here, you've got some pluses and minuses, but it's not on the critical path. Here's one with a plus and a minus on the critical path. So I know, just as a shortcut looking at this update, okay, I've lost a couple of days. How do I make them up?
I like that you have the plumb bob there.
Well, this comes from an old superintendent. It's got the big piece of metal on the bottom, and I move it across as I've updated it. I need to move it over a little bit, but I can look at this thing right now and see where I'm supposed to be right now with each item on this schedule all the way down.
Yep.
And it helps you look at it. You don't realize how many activities you could see that you've got to, and that's a very quick blush. And one of the things that's came out to help this is pool planning. They used to do it with boards on the wall, and we would line up 6 of them. We would have 6-week look aheads. We would have milestone schedules, and we'd have material procurement schedule. We put Post-it notes on the wall all over the place, and we put them in rivers so you could look and see where everybody was in conflicts. We had safety issues on there, the crane in, the crane out. When this was moving across the site, spray them fireproofing, you could block them out. And now it's all digital. Another welcome to AI.
Yeah, you don't see many plumb bobs hanging on the schedules on the walls anymore.
I still have my plumb bobs from years ago.
Still works.
They still work. And no matter what you do, as long as the wind isn't blowing, they hang straight down.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you can see it, but I brought this picture of 3 of my mentor superintendents, and it's hanging there on the wall. And one of them is Sonny Smith, God bless his soul. He every morning religiously had that schedule on the wall, and he was moving the plumb bob over and just updating where he was. You
Yep.
know? And then Frank Eller is the other guy in there, and he's still going, still.
I remember
doing
Frank. I
stuff.
worked with him.
Yeah, and he was the first person that ever introduced me to pool planning. And if you walked in his trailer, and I'm talking a long time ago, before pool planning became popular, he was doing pool planning.
Well,
So, and now it's it's on every wall and every trailer.
Yeah.
Or it's digital, like you said.
It's very good. There's one more person here too.
Yeah, well, that's Rick Bundy, and he's the one we've been talking about.
Rick Bundy Sr.
My number one mentor.
Oh yeah. I worked with him. I like to have had more, but I have certainly enjoyed working with him and the lessons he has taught me.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, we're out of time for today.
That's been great.
I've certainly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Really appreciate it. This is wraps up our edition of Joe on the Job Site. Thank you for watching.